Yo, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another Lion's Den, a nice episode. What's going on, Big Herm? How you feeling, brother? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, man, I just had to, just in case somebody wanted to act funny style, you know that I guess that's what we need to do. You understand what I'm saying? It's a good Sunday. What's going on, Herm?
Man, there's a lot of crazy things happening, man. People getting their tail whooped,
Bro.
on the dock side.
Hey,
man.
I guess it happens, right? I guess it happens, man. Hey, people, you can only push people so far.
No, I just wonder what made you think that it was okay to jump that dude right there on the dock.
Man, you know, it's a funny question, man. I think that some individuals feel as though, hey, after so long, you know, I mean, they're used to doing whatever, you know, they want to do without zero consequences. You understand? But what you think, though?
I think that, you know what I'm saying, there was some drunk folks, you know what I'm saying, and it just got out of hand with them.
Yeah.
You know, and they got exactly what they deserve. Now, I ain't with the woman getting hit in the head with a chair and all that. But other than that, you know, I was cool with everything that happened. I just don't like to see women get hit by men.
Yeah, me neither. I think the tension was high, right? I think the tension was high, and I mean, you think about it. There's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of built up energy, right? A lot of built up passion, anger, and everything. So it was like anyone of a certain hue could get it. You understand? So, and probably, man, I'm gonna have to say this, man. If somebody wasn't looking long enough, they'll see you, they'll think that you was guilty too. You get what I'm saying? Hey, so everybody was getting it.
Yeah.
Everybody was getting it for real. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Lion's Den. Hopefully you hit the share button. What we do here is we talk about all things leadership, growth, and development from in the household to out in the community, but with action. You understand? It's more than just having conversations about it. It's about what we're going to do about it. What are you going to do about it? So this week we have a topic about pain and hope. Herman, man, what do you think about that, man? How does that coincide with you?
Man, when I heard the name,
Mhm.
I immediately went to that old Negro hymn. Joy, pump it up, and pain, keep it going, sunshine and rain. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it.
Hold on.
Wait a minute.
No,
wait a minute.
no, that ain't it.
Wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. You know what I'm saying? It's pain and hope, right?
Yeah.
You got to always remember that, you know what I'm saying, when you're going through something, you got to keep it in your mind that there's a way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because the minute that you feel like there's no hope, you know, that's when people start ending stuff.
Mm.
So that song resonates with me, you know what I'm saying? Especially the way I put it down.
No, but no, I get what you're trying to say. But ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to really think about it this week, this evening, tonight. What does hope mean to you? Think about it, right? We go through all types of things every day, right? Every minute, it all depends. But how do you deal with those things? Now, last week we had a conversation about being resilient. All right, and what it looks like to be resilient and to bounce back from those things. But this week, we're going to talk about the pain and hope and how do you transition through that? What type of help do you get, for that? And what does it look like? So I want everyone to help us to bring in our guest, Miss Tyreese McAllister, y'all. She's going to be on talking to us about that and what does the book Is My Lollipop in Heaven mean? Y'all get ready for the show. It's going to be super dope. Y'all give it up for it. Yes. How you doing, ma'am? Are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So, ladies and
problem with my camera, but let's just go with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, tee us up, Big Herm.
Hey, Miss Tyreese. I want to talk about that book straight up, the inspiration behind it, why you wrote it, and what that book means for the people that doesn't know what Is My Lollipop in Heaven is about.
So Is My Lollipop in Heaven, it is a children's book that really talks about the trauma of homicide through gun violence. So it's a very short story, but it starts with a little girl, 8-year-old Deja, who experienced a school shooting, and her sister gets killed. Her sister's Ayana, but nicknamed Lollipop. Her parents take her to therapy, so there we're normalizing therapy for Black and brown children. And in therapy, she meets several other children. One child who has experienced a suicide of a loved one, a set of twins who experienced a parent killing another parent, a police shooting, and not returning home from a deployment, an accidental shooting, and also a grandfather who was trying to interrupt a robbery. And so those are ways that our community have experienced homicides with gun violence, and it's an opportunity to talk about it. I'm a therapist, and so we want to make sure that children are having a way to process because it's happening in our community more often than I'm comfortable with.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, I didn't do her any good justice as far as introduction, y'all, because we was tied up trying to get everything situated for y'all. But ladies and gentlemen, like she said, she is a therapist, and that book, and it's so outstanding, y'all. She talks about the being a survivor, right? Being a gun violence survivor, and she has a powerful voice being a Black speaker and in the network as well with the Black Speakers Network. But then her book, Is My Lollipop in Heaven, it's been a source of comfort and healing for so many dealing with trauma, y'all. And it's so important. But Ms. Tyreese, how about this? Could you really share with us what inspired you to write that book, Is My Lollipop in Heaven, and how it relates to your personal experiences?
Absolutely. 2017, my 18-year-old daughter was home from college on spring break. She was hanging out with her sister, her roommate from college, who she had brought home to visit, and some friends, and she was killed. I feel like it was an accidental shooting. I don't believe anybody was targeting her, but that's just an unfortunate story that we hear over and over in our community, that people, not just children, but people are being gunned down in the street because gun violence is so rampant. And so when I tried to find a book to help the children in my family, because I know as a therapist, children learn through social stories. When I could not find a book, once I got myself together, I wrote a book.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
Mhm.
And that's super deep. And then I want to go right into the title of the show. Now, based off what you just said, we understand your pain. So, what is your hope? When you wrote this book, what is your hope? What are you looking forward to after experiencing such a traumatic loss?
Mhm.
Well, one of the things that I'm hoping is that we learn we figure out ways to put the guns down. I am a trauma clinician, and so I tell people all the time that violence is a trauma response. We have community of young people who are traumatized by a variety of different things, including experiencing homicides of their own friends and family members, but some other things as well. And we're not addressing the trauma. We're not, open for therapy, or we're not doing the things we need to do to make sure that we can, really take care of ourselves and heal. We're not prioritizing our own mental health. And that's adults and children. One of the things that I tell people all the time, I grew up in North New Jersey. I grew up in the 80s in the midst of a crack epidemic. I don't even know 5 homicide victims from my childhood. And that's when drive-by shootings had really become a thing. And here, my children, we live in the suburbs. My children were in college, right? Like they weren't what we would consider, kids that were out there or in the game or in the life, and they simply hanging out with their friends on spring break, and somebody gets, decides to, spray a crowd of people going to a game or going to dinner, and my daughter gets killed. And so, it's just a tragedy for us as a family, but we used to be able to say wrong place at the wrong time, but my child wasn't in the wrong place. She was in the community. She was doing what she was supposed to be doing, and she succumbed to gun violence.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for being so strong and losing, your daughter. And I know it's not, I can only imagine, excuse me, I will never say what I know. I can imagine that it's not easy. And shout out to everyone out there that's watching right now that has experienced loss in general. Okay. It's not easy. It is really not easy. However, what's important is to connect with resources and individuals that can help you to see your way through that. Right. So let me ask you this. All right. Your book addresses childhood trauma, or just trauma, actually. But what advice can you give parents or caregivers on how to help their children cope with these types of experiences?
Well, actually, while the book addresses, homicide, gun violence and homicide, we really need to normalize mental health. We need to really prioritize our mental health. I'm a grandparent, I have a 4-year-old grandson, and I talk to my grandson often about being able to express his feelings, right? Talk about what's going on, use his words to describe what he's feeling. And that's just the beginning because he's 4. But we need to normalize how people cope, right? Like the world is a rough place to live in. And I don't care what income bracket is. It is, we're exposed to a lot. And I would like to see people normalize taking care of themselves and being able to express hurt and frustration and developing coping skills and gaining emotional intelligence. I think, and of course, my older peers would agree that young people really can't tolerate a lot of frustration. They can't handle the word no, right? Like there's some struggles here, which is only going to get worse as they grow up when they can't understand no, they don't know how to handle frustration or things like that. Like, it's just, I mean, we're in a terrible state. And if we don't get ahead of this, if we don't normalize getting help or, being able to cope with when things don't go our way, we're going to be in a lot more trouble than we're in right
Mm.
So what do you attribute that to? That why our youngsters aren't able to handle the word no or handle a lot of adversities today? And from your experience and your professional background, what do you see as the common trend with our youth?
They're spoiled, right? And they're spoiled. I'll be the first to admit I grew up not having a lot, and so becoming middle class, I was able to give my children a lot, right? So that's part of it, right? Like I really, I wish parents, and not that I didn't do this because I did. We had a lot more experiences than we did kids, right? My kids weren't necessarily given very expensive things. We focus more on experiences as a family. But I see that other people, they may have had children, because I'm a therapist, you buying your kid $200 or $300 sneakers and they got S. Like that should not be happening, right? Like they have, an iPhone is like what, $1,200? Like who does that, right? But this is where we are, and I do with stuff like the Kardashians, right? My daughter, the one that is living, she got pregnant at 21 years old, and she started talking to me about a gender reveal. I'm like, sis, like you pregnant, we gonna accept that, but this is not like, we gotta like let's listen and be real about this. Right?
Right.
And I'm grateful for my grandson. Don't get me wrong, but like 21 living at home is not. We not partying over there.
I love that.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that, and I was waiting to see how that was going to, what your answer was going to be, because I feel the same way. I really do believe that a lot of these children today are being, I wouldn't say taught or led, but they're being influenced easily and more prominently by television versus us. And I believe a lot of that is because of the lack of support that we may have had, growing up in those time frames, because it was just a different, just a different time. And maybe it's the family dynamics as well, right? Because it's not all generational. It could be family dynamics or meaning your culture, right? So some individuals, they put certain things first before the entertainment. They put, school or whatever first, or taking care of the family business first before trying to keep up with the Joneses. You get what I mean? And so I believe that that is true on your end. And me, and even on our end. What you think, Herm? Even on mine, what you think?
Even on my end, you know what I mean? Do I spoil my kids? Yes, I do. And do I catch mad attitude by them? On a daily, you know what I mean? And it just kills me. I'm like, dang, I just dropped $400 on y'all like it ain't nothing. And this is the mouth I get. You know what I mean? It's like it just blows my mind, you know what I'm saying? That it gets like that. And you just want to jump in their head, like, what makes you get like this?
But at the end of the day, it's us.
Is it?
If you think about it, real talk, it is us. I mean, because just because you see something on TV, that does not mean that's your life. You get what I mean? And so if they're gravitating towards that and we're perpetuating it, I mean, it's, everything that's going on in the house for real. Us being an adults, everything that's going on in the house, real talk, man, that's being allowed. We are allowing.
It is, but I also think that, you know what I'm saying, the cell phones changed the game for a lot of parents out here. Even if your kid don't have a cell phone,
Uh-huh.
you know what I'm saying? What's going to happen is they're going to get to the school where everybody's looking at all this different stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, all this different stuff is getting filled into their head. So you really got to be extra involved in what your kids is doing.
Yes.
Or they're gonna get lost in that world, because the world, their world is a whole lot bigger than ours was.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you said something that made some sense. And Mr. Tyreese, what you think about this? Herm said that involvement. So what do you think? And also, audience, please, I want y'all to chime in as well. What do you guys think about the involvement of parents now versus back then when we were younger, right? And we're talking about, let's say 80s, 70s parents or individuals right now that raised up in that time frame. What do you think? And Miss Tyreese, what do you think about that?
So I think, well, one, I wanted to also add this: social services wasn't involved, right? Like I didn't have the 800 number to call nobody when my mother was tearing my butt up. So that's another issue. Because especially, and I know that some children do get abused, and I don't want that ever.
Right.
However, many of us were disciplined with love, and it was necessary. And I know there are lots of parents who are afraid to discipline their children. I know several parents who have had legal consequences because they were disciplining their children, and that's really unfortunate. So that's another caveat. As it relates to being able to, now my mother never came to anything. I was on color guard in high school all 4 years, and she never made one game. And that's because she had to work. And as a wage worker, if she took off work, she would not get paid. Where I had a luxury of being a salaried employee and a director, where I made my own leave or my own schedule and was able to attend every single game. My daughter played basketball, attend every single game. I also could afford to have her in multiple activities. Right, like, so she was a debutante. She played basketball. She played AAU ball. She played for the high school. She was able to do much more because she also grew up in a 2-parent household. You know what I mean? Like, so there were things that we were able to do, but I don't know if that makes the difference, right?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it got okay, and my mother never attended anything, and she couldn't. And so it's just. And I do believe that all children are different. Not every, and I think that's one of the things as African Americans. My daughters are only 13 months apart, and I had to come to the realization these are two very different children. One needed her tail tore up, and the other one not really. Right? Like you would tell her, "Hey, I'm not happy with what you're doing." She'd be like, "I'm gonna stop." The other one's like, "Well, what you gonna do about it?" Right? So it's just different. And even I look at my husband and his brother. They're a little bit further apart in age, but two very different children, and you could not have parented them the same. Somebody's going to lack. And so I think that's the thing that we always thought. I know I thought I needed to be fair for my kids, but is fair wouldn't be appropriate because what one needs, the other one didn't necessarily need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, I want to let y'all know where you at right now. Excuse me. You're here on the Lion's Den, and we're here with Miss Tyreese McAllister. Yep. And listen, y'all, we talking about pain, and we're talking about hope. We're talking about all of it. But here's something else that y'all probably didn't know, right? Not only do we have the privilege of having her on, but she has the experience of being a therapist who has dedicated her career to working with sex offenders. All right. This is certainly a challenge. Think about this. This is a challenging field. And it's hard to wrap my mind around it. I'm sure you guys may be dealing with this as well. Right. And so we're eager to dive into that, Miss Tyreese. So I want to ask this question, though. All right. Could you start by telling us about your journey? Okay. About your journey in becoming a therapist for sex offenders, and what motivated you to try that or jump into that specialty?
So to be honest with you, I had already had a degree in counselor psychology, and we don't make a lot of money, contrary to popular belief. Therapists, social workers, counselors, even psychologists don't make a lot of money. So I had a side hustle, side work. And I was working, somebody asked me to work with sex offenders. I found that I was good at it. And so then I pursued additional certification to do it. And the reason, well, first of all, I realized that treatment does work, and not every therapist can work with a sex offender. I also came to the realization that sex offenses happen out in the world way more often than we think, way more, right? It's the most underreported type of offense that there is. So a lot of times the people are using drugs, selling drugs, robbing banks, even out, menacing. People will tell. If I get robbed, I'm going to report it. Somebody takes my car, I'm going to report it. Sex offenses, not so much. A lot of times sex offenders are people who know their victims more often than not. So you do have, the person who might rape a stranger, but oftentimes the sex offense occurs with somebody who is known or familiar with the person. And because it does such devastating things to a person's psyche when they are abused, I felt it was necessary to be able to, continue and do this work, get as much knowledge as I could so that I could appropriately treat people. I am a firm believer that treatment does work for many people. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for many people.
Okay.
And what I do like about the sex offender treatment program, when people come out of prison with a sex offense in their background, it doesn't even have to be the offense they're in prison for, but if they have a sex offense in their background, they have to go through sex offender treatment, and it's mandated. And so it being mandated, I have a captive audience, and so sometimes it is a little rough. A lot of times people come in and they see a woman and they're like, oh God, they don't want to talk to me. They assume I probably have children. They don't want to talk to me, and it can be a little rough. But I think once they see that, my approach is different, then they soften it up, and then we can really get down to treatment and really some childhood things and address, some of the brokenness of why people do sexually offend.
Got you.
Man, I remember, we go back to the show a couple of times. We did a show with Pat, Project Pat.
Yeah.
And he talked about young men who've been sexually assaulted, don't know how to handle it. And so they take it out on the streets.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? What do you think of that comment, that Ms. Tyreese?
I think it happens a lot more, and like I said, because it's underreported, it's definitely underreported for boys and for men, right? Like they act like it doesn't happen, and this is the thing: any type of trauma, whether it's homicide or whether somebody sexually assaulted you, when you don't deal with the trauma, it starts to deal with you. And so, I'm sort of on this crusade, if you will, to get people to really start dealing with those things that really mess you up the rest of your life. And a lot of times people can recover in a way that they're still successful, right? Like they may not be in the street menacing or acting out, but they don't have solid marriages. They don't have solid relationships. They go from job to job, or they just angry all the time. They've been angry so long they don't even know that that they can experience joy,
Gotcha.
right? And so I see the hurt in the people, especially in my community. Like I'm certainly a therapist for anybody, but I have such a love for my community and understand the traumas that occur in our community, and even we can even talk about the generational and the generational traumas, the racism traumas. Like it's so many things that happen in our community. I just want us to heal, right? Like healing is such a beautiful space to be in, where you can overcome. And I heard y'all talk about resilience, and that's one of my things that I talk about often is resilience, radically resilience, like being not just bouncing back, but bouncing back better than you were before the trauma, occurred. Like, so
absolutely.
I am such a better clinician than I was before my daughter got killed. Like I have a deeper understanding of this pain that I could still be a good clinician before, but now that I've experienced this and walked this walk, my sensitivity to my client is different. I also several years ago went through a bout of major depression. And I thank God for that experience, because when I came out of it, I knew that I was a better clinician because of my experience with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
So,
good. So
yeah.
here, want to touch on that a little bit, right? Seeing is that you feel as though, and you know as though that you're a better clinician. My question for you is, how do you maintain your professionalism and emotional distance when dealing with such sensitive cases?
Well, it depends. Like sometimes there's no emotional distance, right? Sometimes my clients are in the session crying, and I'm crying with them, because guess what? I'm human, right? So I don't try to, this is the thing that I think Black people really got it wrong. Like we try to be strong, and for what? Like I don't want to be strong. I want to be human, and me crying don't mean I'm not strong. So yeah, sometimes my clients are crying, and I'm crying right along with them, or I got my own stuff. But I take care of my stuff, right? I'm a spiritual person. I believe in putting things on the altar and having God take it from me, or asking, what should I do with this pain, right? Like I do gun violence work, and that's what I'm doing with my pain of losing my daughter. I don't just like sit on it or lay with it, right? Like I work through the pain, and make sure, because it's not about my daughter. There's nothing I can do for my daughter at this point. But I'm trying to do things that other people's children aren't being killed. And so we got to learn to like experience what we experience and not avoid it, not run away from it, not, call it what it is. Like some of this, some of this stuff is painful. Like, it hurts.
Yeah, no.
And we got to learn to be human, even like with men. Men struggle with like crying. It's like, because we done mess boys up. Big boys don't cry. Yeah, they do. And sometimes you need to cry so you're not punching somebody in the face. Like if you cry, then you ain't got that pent up. And there are other ways. Like in my treatment, I teach people how to cope and handle and deal, so that you can feel, right? Like it's okay to feel frustrated. It's just, you just don't got to punch people in the face because you're frustrated. You ain't got to choke them out, right?
No.
Yeah. It's why a lot of our young boys are in trouble. That's why they hostile and angry, because nobody, baby, it's okay when you lose a friend. Well, you got kids 14 years old. They done bury 4 or 5 friends. Like that's not easy.
Right.
So, Miss Tyreese, all right, as a counselor and as a clinician, right, you have to take in a whole lot from all different directions, from people you don't know and even people that you do know. How do you recharge? Where do you go? Because there's a lot of people out there that's always somebody for someone, but you know what I'm saying, they feel like, man, but I don't have nobody to talk to. So what do you do in order to, you know what I'm saying, unwind and just be human?
Good question.
Therapy and spirituality, right? I pray, I worship. There's a lot that can be released in worship, right? Like I can do that all by myself. I go to church, I hear the word. I work on emotional intelligence, right? I'm intentional about it. I'm intentional about being in touch with how I'm feeling right now. I'm in touch with how I feel and behave impact my grandson, my daughter, my husband, right? Like I'm intentional with it. I'm intentional about my self-care. I know how to say no. Like, no, it's not a good day. I can't do it right now.
Okay.
Or
so setting boundaries.
Right. Setting very good boundaries. And those are things like with emotional intelligence, like we don't work on enough, right? Like we just kind of go through life, but we're not, taking life seriously. Like, how do I be able to cope? How do I deal with the homicide of a child? And I still got another child to raise, and I'm supporting my daughter and raising my grandson. I can't just, fold. I got other stuff that I'm assigned to. I think that's another thing too. I'm very clear about what my assignments are, and I also know how to mind my business. I don't let things attach themselves to me that ain't none of my business. Right? Like a lot of people be like, well, what they doing? I'm like, I don't know. Like that don't got nothing to do with me. Even my mother, she'll ask me questions about my 26-year-old daughter. I'm like, Ma, she grown. I ain't followed up with that. Like she got to figure that out. Right. And then if she asks me, I'm going to help her. or I'm gonna it depends. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna help her. I'm gonna be available, but I'm not following behind her. Did you do this? Do you got this? Like I got my own assignment.
Right.
Right. She's now a mother, and she has her assignment, and she gotta figure it out. And I also believe this goes back to the other question that I see a lot of parents do, and I did not do this. I do not do this. Is sometimes you have to let your child experience the consequence of their behavior, good or bad. I don't interrupt. Like, so my kids knew at an early age, if you do something to go to jail intentionally, you should have your bail money before you go. Because I'm not doing it. Yeah, like you don't get to sell drugs and get out here fighting and then call me for bail money. Like, don't do it. Right? Like, don't fight.
Right.
Like, don't be out here, and because my oldest daughter, she was one of those brawlers. I'm like, baby, if you don't have your bail money put aside, well, I'll go get it and bring it to you, but I'm not coming to bail you out with my money because that's not what I want to do with my money.
Right.
And my kids thought it was cruel, but I was like, nah, because you know better. You have the skills to not do this. If you decide to do this, you don't get to draw me in to your mess. And so luckily we've never had to have that. But, it's a conversation you should have. And, even I've had friends to say, that's cool, you wouldn't go get your kid. And I'm like, it's cool for her to be out here acting a fool when she's been raised better than that, embarrassing me and then needing my money. Like, that's cruel. Don't do that.
No, I get you. I get you. And I mean, it's, there's different parenting tactics for sure, but I am on the line of that, right? Because if you know the difference between right and wrong, directly or indirectly, you chose to, do whatever it is. And the fact is, you're not mad that you're in trouble. You're more mad that you got caught.
And then also, man, how are they ever going to learn anything if I'm there to bail them out
every time?
You know what I'm saying? That's just going to lead to bigger problems if I'm always over there to just try to clean it up. If I don't let you sit in what you just did.
Right. Because they're going to expect that.
If you don't sit in what you just did, next thing you know, it's going to be something big that happened that I can't help you with.
Exactly. Hey, me won't. Right. And I think I understand the old adage, this is going to hurt me more than it hurt you. You see what I'm saying? Because it's like you're watching someone you've created, essentially, make a decision that could, jeopardize their whole life. You understand? But hey, I want to say shout out to everybody that's watching right now. Big James, what's going on? James says actions have consequences and they have to learn that. Absolutely. Hey, shout out to you too. Big Larry here from Korea. He's visiting for some time, man. So shout out to you, man. We had a good time the other night, man. Always love hooking up with the fellas. Quincy, I see you out there. What's going on, brother? But thank you again, though, Miss. I was getting ready to call you Sharice. Excuse me, my fault. Miss McAllister. But look, I got another question for you because you deal with a lot of different people, dealing with a lot of different trauma. But do you mind sharing any success stories or instances where you've seen significant change and growth in a client?
Yeah, so one of the other things that I do, and I'm really proud of this work, is a lot of my clients are police officers and first responders. And so I train police officers as well on mental illness. So not only how to deal with vulnerable populations in the community, but the softer skills that go with it, like emotional intelligence, de-escalation, active listening skills. And in doing that, I've had a lot of police officers after training sign up and say, you know what, I do need some help. I should be talking to somebody. And really have a huge difference. Like maybe, because they have successful careers, they may come to the realization that maybe the problems in their marriage were a result of them not really dealing with their stuff, or dealing with, even the community, right? Like being so angry and frustrated about the job and dealing with the community, like just have a better sense of other people's trauma and why people act out. That really is like the latest success that I'm experiencing, that treatment works. It just, if people can get over themselves You know, a lot of times and I think that's like one of my gifts is being able to break the stigma and normalize that we all struggle, right? And one day or another, or at some point or another. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you're Black or if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're a professional. I say my therapy session, or really my ministry in the world, is from the block to the boardroom, right? So it doesn't matter. I got clients who are CEOs, and I got, you know, recovering thugs, right, that I treat. And I think once people can buy into therapy, you know, and I'll tell people, you know, just humor me. Give me 30 days. Give me once a week for a month. And if you not feeling better, if you ain't, but you got to do what I'm talking to, you know, working with you on. If you're not feeling better, I'll give you all your money back. I'll give you your money back. I ain't got no problem with that, because I know if you work the stuff that I'm gonna share with you, you're gonna have some changes and you're gonna feel better. And I've had clients to say, I should kick my own behind for not coming sooner, right? Like, it's just, you know, treatment does work if you work it, and if people aren't afraid to heal. And that's the thing. People, you know, either don't want to, you know, say that I have something's going on, but it's so much better to like just jump in there and say it and get it treated than to live with it. And I think the fear sometimes is people don't think that it can change, but you can change how you feel about it.
That makes sense. Go ahead, Big Earn.
So on the flip side of that, has there been a time where you're like, man, you know, therapy really can't help this person, is beyond that? What does that look like, if that's even possible? What does that look like for you?
If therapy can help them?
Cannot. You feel like, man, this person is beyond therapy, or at least my brand of what I'm able to bring. What does that look like, if you ever experienced that, and how do you move forward with that person?
Well, and a lot of times I have felt that way, especially with children, right? Like they just not in a position where they can receive it or make the changes, right? Like they don't have the support or the skills to be able to do it. And it's not my expertise, right? Like, so I'm not able to do it. And so I would refer out, right? I have tried to not give up on anybody. And because I'm a believer, as a Christian, I'm a believer that even if they're beyond my help, that they're not beyond God's help. And so it's oftentimes I pray for, you know, my clients, you know, they don't know I'm praying for them, but I believe that prayer is necessary. And so I find that, you know, I'm praying for my clients. I know that I had a client years ago who got on my last nerve. She was a 16-year-old. She just was not listening, to be honest. She got on my nerves. However, I ran into her. She was about 20-something years old, and she said that I had saved her life. And I was like, really? I was shocked. And she said, yeah. And she brought up a time that I had met with her where she actually had considered suicide, but it was what I said to her that made her at least not go down that road. And I never knew that. Like, I didn't know even at the time I was working with her that suicide was even on the table for her. But, you know, I just believe that as a believer, I cover myself, my family, and my clients, because those are my assignments, right? In prayer. And that everybody is worthy of help, and really just getting people to believe that. For me, it's not so hard because it's in my private practice anyway. People are engaged with me because they want something. And so those are people who want to work on, they know they have something, and they usually want to work on something. It's when I was doing emergency mental health and I'm dealing with, you know, out in the community, and somebody else has called because, you know, the person is acting out or something like that, then it might be a little bit, you know, like they don't want help. But I just never give up on people because I've seen some miracles. Gotcha. I've seen some people who, you know, have been written off by others, and somebody says something, and today is the day. Today is the day. And I know we often get that with substance abusers, right? Where substance abusers are out here and the families have given up on them, because, you done tried it, they done went back, they, back and forth. But I've seen some miracles. So I do believe in miracles, and I believe that people don't want to be in the bad shape they in. They just don't know what else to do. And sometimes the pain is so great.
That's
and
right.
I understand that pain, like for me losing a child, like that is an unimaginable pain.
Right.
I just thank God that I had some skills and knew how to help myself, because I don't know if I was an accountant, would I be in the same position, right? Like I wouldn't have the skills to know that I could recover from this. But because I had the skills, I knew how to like work through this. I don't know if that would have been the case if I was doing something.
No, we get that, and I want to say thank you though. Oh, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah. So one more question for me. A lot of us is not versed in therapy and whatnot, but we deal with these people every day. You know what I'm saying? That been through trauma and whatnot. You know what I mean? Whether it's sexual abuse or come from drug addict parents. Me personally, I deal with kids that come from all kind of backgrounds as a community center director. What advice can you give to people, you know what I'm saying, that deal with folks that are suffering through trauma? Because on one hand, I hear people say, hey, they're going to have to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? On the other hand, a tender touch. What advice would you give somebody that may come across people that is dealing with trauma? How do you advise we handle those folks?
Well, you got to meet people where they are. Right. At the end of the day, people don't want to be judged. People want to be respected. And sometimes people just need their space and they need time. I just think the one thing that I've been able to do, even when I worked in the jail, is just respect people, right? Like just be kind and considerate, and be kind to people who ain't necessarily kind to me, right? Because doing emergency mental health out in the community, I done been cussed out and still gave somebody the absolute best service I could give them. Right, I'd have been uninvited out somebody's house, which means they done told me to get the F out, right? And I'm still kind. I would still call and follow up. Hey, I'm just checking on you, right? And I just think that a lot of times that's people's defense mechanism. Like, you're not going to help me, so let me just get you away from me, right? I deal with that even sometimes in the police department. Like, they like, you don't get it, you don't understand. And I'm going to always extend you that kindness, and I'm going to give you a lot of grace. Now, my husband says I give people a lot of excuses, but I understand trauma, and it really isn't an excuse. Like, people are acting out because something done happened, right? And I get that in a very different way. Kids aren't born monsters, right? If you ask any 5-year-old, 4-year-old what they want to be when they grow up, they want to be amazing things. Nobody says I want to grow up and be twerking on a pole. Nobody, they're like, oh, when I'm an adult, I'm going to be selling drugs and killing the community, right? They want to be a police officer, right? Want to be something amazing. And somebody will pilot light out, right? Like it's abuse or trauma or neglect, right? Or, just not even having, because it ain't always a bad thing. Sometimes you could just be a parent that got to work 2 jobs, right? Like, you ain't there for your kid because you're trying to feed them. I can't be mad at a parent that's doing that, right? But your kid might get exposed to some things, but it's a condition of being poor, right? It's not that you had a bad parent. You just had the conditions wasn't set up for you to get everything you needed, right? Because some kids need more, right? My mother worked all the time. I managed fine. I was the only child. I managed fine, but not every kid can manage being home alone and what that feels like, right? Like, so we got to really meet people where they are, and try to meet the needs, right? Like, another thing is you can't really help nobody if you don't meet their needs. Like, I could talk to somebody about their mental health all day long, but if they hungry, they not hearing me, right? So I might have to feed the kid before I start talking about that, right? They might be hug deficient, right? Their parents ain't home to hug them. Maybe their parents is using and stealing from them, right? And they haven't had any physical touch, right? Except for to be harmed, right? So Like being able to see that and give a kid that, besides yelling and saying you bad. And
The heck?
No, hold on. No, hold on. No, go ahead. You keep on going.
Oh,
to say, you know, the opposite.
I think we're having some technical difficulties. Well, I just got set up.
Yeah, man. I don't know what it was, but no, absolutely, ma'am. No, we heard you. We're hearing you. We was just having some video issues going on the background. So, but no, what I want to do, first of all, want to let everybody know who we had in the building, right? Miss Tyreese McAllister. Yes, getting it in here in the Lions Den. But well, look, man, look, we're getting ready to hit that time. Do you mind telling us where we can find you and find your book?
Yes. If you go on to TyreseMcAllister.org, TyreseMcAllister.org, you can find all of my books because I have several.
Okay.
And or you can, if you're interested in being a client, if you're in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Washington, DC, Virginia, Maryland area, I'm licensed in all 3 states. And you can find me at clinicalforensicassociates.com. clinicalforensicassociates.com.
Oh, thank you so much. Hey, Herm, what you got, man, for your final word, brother?
Hey, first and foremost, I want to thank Miss Tyreese McAllister for coming on and sharing her story with us, and letting us know what pain and hope looks like. Next thing I want to do is thank everybody that was watching today. I see a few people: James want to get married, Franklin watching, my girl Scamp, my boy Trip Sanders, man. You are a perfect example of pain and hope, man. I know what you're going through right now, and I'm always praying for you, full recovery, brother. You know what I'm saying? And then also, my father as well. If you're watching, just know that they're with you. But yeah, I wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us, and hopefully we hear more from you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, again, this has been the Lions Den with Seth. And look, no matter what it is that you're going through right now, you're going through it for a reason. Sometimes people don't like to hear that. Like, no, why do I supposed to go through this? And no, this hurts and this does this and that. But however, this is part of the process. You understand? It's part of the process, but I challenge you to surround yourself with individuals that can help you through it. All right. Swallow your pride. Sometimes you need to talk to someone that knows a little bit more than you on how to navigate through this fog or whatever it is that you're going through right now. And everyone's journey is different. Okay. Everyone's journey is different, but I challenge you, get the help that you need. All right. Because there is hope on the other side of that pain. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see y'all soon, and be kind to each other. Right on? Right on. And Miss McAllister, you stand by. All right. Don't hang up. Later.